You know, the very heart of biblical discipleship, or helping other people pursue God, is this idea that we are called as followers of Jesus to speak God's truth to other people in the context of loving relationships. That's really what it means to help other people pursue God. You point them to God's truth. But, very often we find ourselves hesitant to do so because we wonder, who am I to say anything? Am I really in a position in this person's life to speak God's truth to them? Well, the truth is that God's plan for discipleship or changing people's lives through his truth doesn't involve just church leaders or experts or theologians. It involves regular people who believe in and are willing to share the power of God's truth. Now, again, a lot of people would say that that's true, but when it really comes down to it, they're hesitant. And here are a few of the main reasons people have that really stop them from sharing God's truth. One, people say, I've got my own stuff. I've got my own issues and problems and sin, and really, who am I to speak anything to somebody? Or some people say, I just don't know enough. There's a lot of questions that I can't answer, so I really shouldn't try to do that. Or, I don't want to look arrogant or like I know it all when I try to speak into someone's life. Or some people say, it's just not my personality. I'm kind of a shy person. And I like to keep to myself, mind my own business. And other people say, I'm just afraid that if I speak truth, people are going to get upset because sometimes truth is hard and challenging. Not always, but often it is. And I don't want people to reject me or be upset with me. My guess is that probably all of us at some point in our lives as Christians have encountered one of these hesitations, and we've stopped from sharing the truth because of one or more of them. But again, you need to understand that God didn't call just experts to share God's truth. He has called regular people. I want you to consider the story from the book of Acts chapter 4 that really demonstrates this really powerfully. This is from the very early life of those first followers of Jesus, those first disciples. In Acts chapter 4, they are just sort of getting on their feet and trying to help other people pursue God. And the religious leaders of the day weren't really excited about that. They kind of got upset. And so the next day, the council of all the rulers and elders and teachers of the religious law met in Jerusalem. And they brought in the two disciples and demanded, by what power or in whose name have you done this? Now notice, these people, these are not kind of low-level schlubs. These are like the high-ranking religious experts in their culture, the high priestly class. And they drag in these early followers of Jesus, and they say basically, who are you to be doing anything? By what power, by whose authority are you there speaking God's truth? And I love how the Apostle Peter responds to this. He simply says, you just need to understand the only spiritual answer out there is Jesus Christ. He is the only way you can find salvation. Now, this is a pretty bold thing for these guys to say. I mean, they were flying in the face of religious culture in that day. But look at the response in verse 13. It says, the members of the council were amazed when they saw the boldness of Peter and John, for they could see that they were ordinary men with no special training in the scriptures. And they also recognized them as men who had been with Jesus. Now again, think very carefully about that phrase that those guys said. They recognized that these men who were doing powerful things for God, these were ordinary people. There was nothing special about them, no special training. They hadn't been to seminary or Bible college. They were ordinary guys. But here's the thing, they knew Jesus. And because they knew Jesus and had encountered the reality of God in their life, they were willing to share his truth. And see, this brings us to a really important idea when it comes to helping people, something that should propel us to really be willing to do it. And that's this, that the power to help people, it's not in us, it's in God's truth. We're not there just speaking our own wisdom, our own ideas, spewing out our own advice. No, we are there to share God's truth, and there is inherent power in God's truth. So we shouldn't feel bashful or shy or arrogant about sharing God's truth. After all, it's not ours, it's God's. And so we should go forth as ordinary, unschooled people and be willing to share God's truth. And as you're challenged with this, we need to always remember that the enemy, the devil, he wants you to remain silent. But God, he wants you to speak his truth. So why don't you go ahead and pause now and think about these questions.